Dr. Becky Musil, and she is the principal at Lakewood Elementary in Belton, and has been nice enough to come and spend her afternoon with us. She served previously as the Dean of Teaching and Learning at Odessa College, where she facilitated faculty growth and active learning to support a student-centered learning environment. She previously served as interim director of NISOD at the University of Texas at Austin, provost for Texas State Technical College, and associate vice chancellor of strategic initiatives for Texas State Technical College. And again, she currently serves as principal at Lakewood, where I'm excited to tell you that she's my granddaughter's principal. So, yay! So please join me in welcoming Dr. Musil.
Thank you. I know you're probably thinking, wow, from college to elementary, it's so much fun. You know, they hug you every day, all the time. And they use your pants for napkins, especially on fried chicken day. One day I looked down white pants and I was like, are you wiping your hands on my pants? Uh-huh. Oh. All right. So I understand that you want to hear a little bit about 8-week courses. So what I'm going to do, just so that you know right up front, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I learned along the way when I worked with faculty at Odessa College. Some of the things that helped the process and a few things that hindered the process. So I'll talk through that, and then I've got some of my courses. We used Blackboard. I understand you guys use Desire to Learn, D2L. And so it'll look a little different, but you can see some of the ways that I set up my courses, and I'll talk about that process. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. All right. So teaching in the 8-week format, some of you may think, I don't know how to breathe during an 8 weeks. Do you feel that way? Yeah, it's a challenge. All right, so one thing that I worked with our faculty on and that I did in my own courses, by the way, I was Dean of Teaching and Learning, but Odessa College has a real challenge getting people to come move to Odessa and teach. First of all, the cost of living is prohibitive because of the oil and gas industry. So I was carrying almost a full-time faculty load as well. So everything that I was doing, that I was teaching, I was doing in my courses, right? So I carried typically 12 hours per semester, and then I did midwinter and Maymester and summer. So usually 12 hours during the summer. So I stayed really busy. And I created, oh, that's a different story. So one thing that was really, really important to remember, one thing that I worked with my classes on is that outcomes have to drive your content. Outcomes, not a book. All right, you teach outcomes. What do you want your students to know and to be able to do? All right, if you go chapter by chapter, you'll lose it. You don't have enough time to go chapter by chapter. And I know this will hurt some of your feelings and it's really hard to let go. Some of your favorite books, your textbooks, not everything relates to your course outcomes. It just doesn't. So go back and say, here's what our outcomes are, here's what I have to do. All right, so just a little bit of data, all right, from Odessa College, just so that you can see it. 2 years after introducing 8-week courses, there was a 13% increase in enrollment. All right, that's pretty good. 20% increase in first time in college, 2% increase in course completion, 8% in C or better success, and then 27% in decrease of federal funds for non-completion. So we experienced some pretty rapid change. All right, persistence. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but you can kind of look at the persistence rates. This is one thing that OC did well, is that they looked at the persistence rates in the 16-week semesters and then the 8-week, and you can look at the difference in the numbers there. Now, I will say, before we go any further, there are some courses that did not go 8 weeks. All right, there simply are some courses. A lot of our workforce courses, because of the number of hours that they have to have in the labs, they could not go into 8 weeks. So there are some courses, some of our nursing programs, some of our courses there could not go into 8 weeks. All right, so before you're thinking, but we can't get it all done. No, you can't. Some courses don't. Almost every academic course can make that transfer, though. So, all right, so how do you make it work? How do you meet? SACS requires us that we do so much time, I should put SAC COC, sorry, I get in trouble for that. So if you're doing a face-to-face course, all right, you're meeting, what, 6 hours a week? Is that right? So in an 8-week course, make sure you're doing 6 hours of student work. That's a pretty easy one. All right, if you are doing a hybrid, do y'all do hybrids? Okay, I thought you did. You do 3 hours of seated instruction. You may divide that into 2 days. I'm not sure what your scheduling looks like. And then do 3 hours of technology-driven instruction. And then do 6 hours of student work. All right, so once again, you've got a plan with these time frames in mind. Online, if it's just completely online, then you do 6 hours of technology-driven technology instruction, however you want to do that, and I'll show you some of the ways I've done that, and then 6 hours of student work. All right, so students should know right up front what to expect, how many hours as well. That's helpful. Questions? If you have questions, raise your hand. Up to this point. None? Okay. All right. Something that we also promoted were flipped classrooms. Y'all probably been using, how many of you have used a flipped classroom? All right, that's where you expect the students to do all of the reading, all of that outside. It's instead of doing, covering content in class. I will tell you that I experimented a lot. I experimented a whole lot because I needed to know if I was going to go work with our faculty, I needed to try things so that I could say, hey, I just tried this and it was wonderful. Or I just tried this and it didn't go so well. I tried a 100% flipped classroom, and what I found, it was hit and miss with my students doing all of the reading. So I had to go back and cover some of the content in class. We had limited time, so I did not want to cover that content. I wanted them to read it on their own, but it wasn't working. Okay? So you might come up with some sort of balance. All right. Flipped classrooms, some of the benefits. So it makes sense. If they're getting the content outside of class, then if you're in a face-to-face or a hybrid, then you've got time to work one-on-one with them, which makes them more successful, right? And then they have improved grades and improved student attitude. So, and there's other ways. Even if you're doing, online, you can still provide a lot of instructional support, but that's a whole different session. Out of class, technology-delivered instruction and independent practice, and then in class you could do lots of guided practice. And this is really redundant for you guys. I know you're already doing this. That's what good teachers do, or good faculty. All right, timing. Timing. One thing that I had to talk about over and over with my faculty is there are things that you must cover. And what are those? What do you have to cover? All right, your outcomes, right? Whatever the state says in the Academic Course Guide Manual or the WECM, you have to cover those. You have to be able to measure those are your must. Then you have your should. But I know that their next course is going to ask them to do this, so we really should introduce this concept. Right? Do y'all think that way? Of course you do. All right? So I really should. But so you've got your must cover, and then your should cover, and then your could cover. All right? Think about that favorite assignment you have. Y'all have that favorite assignment? And you're like, well, okay, so I just like it. It's maybe not directly related, but it's kind of me related. All right, so in 8-week courses, you got to give it up, all right? It's just you've got to concentrate first. So prioritize what must you cover, then next what should you cover, because if you have time. And then some of those favorite things, find new favorite things that are part of the must cover. That's a hard one. My faculty struggled with that. But I love this project, and it takes 2 weeks. But it doesn't measure your outcomes. And that was really disheartening for some of them. All right, next one, the assignment should always measure your learning outcomes. I think I just said that. So I think you're hearing that. Learning outcomes is central to making an 8-week course work. If you just begin to think learning outcomes, learning outcomes, learning outcomes. All right, and then scaffold your assignments. One thing that I ran into, and we're going to talk about scaffolding in just a minute, is that some of my instructors would forget that students need scaffold assignments. They need an introduction to something before they give the big assignment. So they saw, okay, I have half the time, so I'm just going to put in the major grades and none of the assignments that lead up to it. Your students will fall on their faces. So don't let them do that. All right, so scaffold your assignments. And that I saw that not only with 8-week courses, but with our 3.5-week courses with our Maymaster and midwinter. They were like, okay, I'm going to take all these little ones out and just give the big ones. But those little ones, hopefully, were scaffolding so that they got to the bigger ones. No, what did I? Okay. So scaffolding, as you know, the content becomes more familiar. It's easy content, the little things that you do to help get them ready for the big grades. And then easy steps. They shouldn't take a whole lot of time if you're just trying to get students ready for the big grades. And then the task gives you time to model with think alouds and error correction. So if you're really doing somewhat of a flipped classroom and you're working with them in class, you can model so that they also have better clarity about what the expectations are. So the benefits, you spend less time correcting issues. And then students feel better when they have those little small steps. Now, I'm going through this and I know you're going, well, that's a no-brainer, but really the inclination, what I saw with faculty is to get rid of those scaffolding. So just think this helps the student be more successful in your class. All right, so the process, you've got modeled instruction, guided practice, supported practice, independent work with feedback, and then you have your independent practice. All right, time management. Now, how do you manage your time in an 8-week course? It's kind of sometimes brutal. I mean, it is. So time management, here's timely and relevant grading. All right, I've got a friend who teaches at a university, not here. And he said that he was having a conversation with a peer, and it was Thanksgiving. And he said, oh, I guess I should start grading. I mean, this professor had done nothing. All right, first of all, that's not fair to the student, but grade every 3 days. Try and get grades turned around. Now, if it's something massive, anybody English department? Raise your hand. Okay, you're going, no way. All right, but if you schedule it at a time. All right, so grade within 3 days and give instructional feedback. All right, don't just say great job, don't give just a grade, give instructional feedback. Has anybody tried using audio feedback? A few of you? Do your students like it? All right, I started using, I know D2L has audio feedback, I'm sure. Try it. You just talk to the student about the assignment. All right, just talk to the student. And my feedback, because that's one of the things, I think I was probably one of the only faculty members using audio feedback, saved me time, and then they loved it. And I could give them a lot better. I could say, I'm looking at paragraph 2, blah, 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 and talk to it. And they could go back and look. Communication, really critical. You've got 8 weeks with your students. Communicate frequently. All right, use frequent announcements. All right, remind them of due dates over and over and over and over. Okay, email, text, and call. All right, or some of you might use some apps that might help you with your communication. But do that frequently. Don't say, well, I sent out the syllabus and they should know when things are due. All right, because 8 weeks goes by fast. Just think, if somebody goes down with the flu, what happens? Better yet, my student who was a mother of 5 children, one got the flu. You know what happened after that, right? All of a sudden, a household of 7 had the flu for ongoing, one of them or 2 for 3 weeks. So easy to get behind. Respond to student questions promptly, like within a day, and you may already have a policy on this, but respond within a day. 8 weeks, like I said, that time, they don't have time for you to wait for a week because you're already moving on. So respond quickly. Other suggestions, use rubrics. Use rubrics, okay? How many of you use rubrics just with everything you do? All right, good rubrics are also instructional in nature and also help define expectations. Okay, so use rubrics, bank frequent comments. If you're going to be typing comments, you see patterns in things that students do. Hopefully you use those patterns to self-correct in how you're teaching, right? But bank those comments. Create a comment list, and you can put the same thing, comment. If you know that the comment, if this is something that students are struggling with and you see it showing up, copy and paste that comment. Make sense? Personalize it. Always say, all right, Dear Susan, or Susan, I noticed, and then put the comment. Does anybody already do that? Make some comments? Okay. And then grade by assignment instead of by student. Every once in a while I found a faculty member that would say, okay, today I'm going to grade all of Leslie's papers. Tomorrow I'm going to grade Robin's all at one time. Grade by assignment so that you stay more consistent. Yeah, it was weird. Anyway, if y'all do that, please forgive me for. Anybody do that? Yeah. It was people typically that were coming from the university that would do that. I don't know. Anyway, and then correct common mistakes once. Put a note, all right, in their feedback, all right. All proper nouns have to be capitalized, including the first word of your sentence. Anybody ever see that? Like you get papers turned in text message language? You do? Okay, good, because I did too, and it was like, whoa, there's not a capital letter in this whole thing. All right, so correct it once and say, hey, go back and look. I'm telling you now, the next time you turn something in, or resubmit, have them resubmit. But don't spend your time correcting every little thing. All right, make sense? Questions at this point? No? All right, so I'm going to show you some example courses. All right. When you look at this, I'm going to show you modular course design, clearly defined expectations and due dates, announcements, content delivery, OER content. Y'all had an OER session this morning. How many of you, anybody using OER? OER? Oh, it's tomorrow. I'm sorry, I did read it. I read your entire schedule, but OER. Okay, so I'm a huge proponent of OER. And all my courses were OER. So, all right, and then look for rubrics. So I'm going to try and show you all of this in the time that I have left. All right, do you want to see some courses that I put together? Yes? Okay. Give me a minute. All right, so I taught in the education department and the psychology department. So I'm just going to do psychology today. All right? Of course, I'm not an employee of Odessa College anymore, so I don't have access to my Blackboard. So I downloaded some courses into course sites. And so I'm going to show you. Let's start with, any psychology people in here? Yay, psychology people. All right. So, all right. I'm looking at announcements. Oops, I can't send a new one. So I've got quite a few announcements. Sometimes I knew that they weren't looking at the rubric, so I'd copy and paste it and send it to them. Hey, by the way, here's your rubric. All right, and that usually was because, for example, this course I taught several times, and for some reason they never saw the rubric for this. I sent out the syllabus at the beginning of the year. My announcements got better from this course, by the way. All right, let's see, coursework. All right, so I set up courses in modules. I'm sure you do that as well. And it was usually divided up into several weeks per module. One course I'm going to show you, once again, experimenting. I was working with my vice president of instruction, and she thought that students would do better if they had a module per week. I don't think they liked it. I really don't think they liked it. I think they felt it was too much, even though it was the same amount of work. Having fewer modules made it seem to be more manageable. I know it was just in their mind, but I'll show you what that looks like. So as they went through here, So I've got modules, and I love pictures. Everybody loves pictures. I've got the learning outcomes identified that we're going to cover, that we would cover in that module. And then I have my schedule, when their due dates were, and what outcomes they tied to. Isn't that a sweet picture? You like that? Did I hear an O? All right, then here's one thing that I really tried to move my faculty to, and you're going to see an example when I didn't do it. What is that module about? So we're not teaching module 2. In this, they're covering conception to infancy. And once again, learning outcomes with their due dates. Module 3, early to middle childhood, so they knew. That's what we're going to talk about in this one. So do you see the consistent design? And then their final. So they always had their due dates clearly identified. So let me pop into one of these modules. I had to start here. I know, that sounds really obvious, right? But hey, start here. Because sometimes they were like, I can't find where to start. Okay, we're going to make a start here. And then, here's theorist. All right, if you'll look at this, I'm just going to, Susan, also plug OER. This was actually, I think, it was an OpenStax book that I loaded content into, because when you use OER, by the way, I know you'll have a hard time believing this, but sometimes students don't click out to a textbook. Did y'all believe that? Yeah. Okay, they don't. And so what I decided, and you'll see several examples, I experimented with that too. This, I just loaded the text in. In another course, I put it in PowerPoints. And they liked that. I was like, oh, that's a lot of work. But they really liked it. And so this is OER content. I embedded videos, and not every video could be embedded. And so I just started using this common symbol. Hey, this is a video. And they liked the video, so they were clicking out on those. So that was good. And then put all kinds of things in there. And then here, this is how they attributed it. And then here's their paper, their assignment that went with it. So let's jump out of this course. This is the one, anybody that knows me knows that I've got a quirky sense of humor. I'm hoping psychotherapy can help me lose weight. Isn't why they call you a shrink? Thank you for laughing. That wasn't the only one. Other thing that I learned was, this was an online class, and I put tips for success. I was always looking for things that would help my students be more successful. Now, this was better. Every week, I just automated an announcement that went to their email as well, with exactly what they were supposed to have accomplished that week. Every week, I'd send it out at the same time every week. I think it went out on Sunday nights, which is usually when they were working, by the way. I also was in charge of our library and all of our tutors. Sunday nights were crowded because they were, and heaven forbid that the internet went down. So those were all automated. They're not necessarily in order. Okay, another grin for you. If you don't get it, ask your help. If you don't know what Hamburger Helper is, you didn't grow up at the same place I did. Anyway, so announcements. Let me show you coursework here. They've got to know you're real. They've got to know you're human. All right, so something that I started doing in this course is I did a navigation video. So I talked to them, hey, this is what you're going to find in the course, and I just did a short little video. It's what you're going to find in this course. Here's what you can expect. Always look here for this, look here for that. And sometimes it had me. They were looking at me. You're welcome, sweetie. All right. Sometimes it had me, sometimes it was on the screen, so I could show them. All right, so I did navigation menus videos at the beginning of the course and also at the beginning of every module. So I got smarter, all right? And so that the students really liked. And then once again, here I put the learning outcomes in a different place. I have no idea why I put them in one place, and anyway. But if we look at there's my week 2 video. I mean, my module of it, this was week 2 video because I had several folders within one module. So I talked to them, here's what's going on in this week. And then required reading. So I've got a PowerPoint and I put text in. And a video. They love videos. Use videos. Good videos. Use videos. They love videos. And then sometimes you can entice them to read. Sometimes. All right. And then all the attributions. All right. So let's look at. Oh, let me close this one out. They were mixtures. The one that I'm about to show you, and really, there wasn't a whole lot of difference. Remember I told you that I was experimenting, and my VPI decided that she thought everybody should use 8 modules for 8 weeks. I can tell you my students didn't do as well. They didn't. And I don't know if they just felt like it was too overwhelming, but they just didn't do as well. Now, on this part, I still have the outcomes. Notice they're back at the top. And then I still have the layout of what's due when. And I always put 11:59. I tried to get our faculty to move away from having everything due Sunday at midnight. Do y'all do that, Sunday at midnight? Our faculty, it's Sunday at midnight, and if Blackboard went down, then you got 40 emails or text messages. Blackboard's down, what am I going to do? So anyway, unless you have some sort of policy. Dr. Trevino, I don't know. And then, so as you look through, oh no, that's not the one I did 10 modules. I lied, sorry. So one thing to look at, let me go to, oops. No, go back. All right, if you look, I used rubrics all over the place. You can see all the rubrics I used. So I can pull one up. They don't have to be complex, but I used rubrics everywhere. Okay. It depends on whether it's a high stakes assignment or was it one of those scaffolding assignments. All right, low stakes, so that depended on how complex. All right, but students would go and they'd say, oh, okay, and they'd look at the rubrics. So if you don't currently use rubrics, I highly recommend. Let me look at that one. This one was pretty simple. It was a low stakes assignment. Just put it on a scale. Doesn't matter, whatever scale you want to use, the grade's going to come out the same if you set it, because I did it by percentages, not by points. Okay? Let me see here. What else did I ask you to look for? Do y'all remember? Expectations. So that's kind of built in. Oh, okay, so here's one. Okay, don't judge me. I do use crash courses. Anybody use a crash course? Yeah, they're fun, they're short. And then here's another content delivery. Once again, it's in a PowerPoint. This took me a long time to build just because of the OER. You've got to make sure that you're concise. The beautiful thing about content when you build your own, if you're using OER, the beautiful thing about that is that you can pick out just the parts you want. Right, so you don't have to use the entire chapter if you think it's not beneficial or it doesn't meet the outcomes. And then here was a link to Outside. So just right here, in this section, they had a video, they had reading that was in the form of a PowerPoint, and then they had a link to another website. So vary that, it helps. All right. It is 3:36. And I have time for questions. That's good. Okay, yes.
All right, so do you find a difference between grading by percent or grading by points? Is it them understanding where they're at?
One thing that my perception is that students wanted that numerical grade. Do y'all find that, any of you? They wanted that numerical grade. I think one or the other, but they wanted to know where they were. And so they wanted to see that grade. Okay, so I've got so many points. Well, I don't have time to do the math. I don't want to do the math. What is my grade?
Well, these
So-
shows that, but then what I find, at least the thing that they have trouble with at the end is understanding that they had a B now, but they flunked the final. And so now they have a C or a D because they didn't
Right.
get enough points to make the B or the A.
Right.
And-
That's a great point.
And I don't know that percent fixes that either, because if they flunk the final, they flunk the final.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I didn't know whether you had any,
The question is, did you scaffold that final? No, just kidding. Just kidding.
probably not.
Other questions? I went through that pretty fast, but wanted to make sure.
When you taught those courses, did you make all of the modules available at the beginning of the semester, or did you make them available throughout the semester?
You know, here's the deal. I firmly believe that some of our students can want to move through more quickly, so for the most part, I made them available all at one time.
Did students like that?
Yes, some did. Some did. Now, I wasn't one to go back and close a module after it was over. I just kept them open because, you know, I had students with 5 children with the flu, and, you know, yeah, she communicated with me every day, even when she had the flu. So I kept them open. So, yes.
So did you essentially do kind of self-paced, where you made it available? And
Yes and no. What I found is that I had a few super achievers who would move really fast, but there were things that we did that were interactive. So they knew, and that's what I would tell them up front. If you want to move faster, that's great. But there are interactive activities where you have to participate with peers. And so you have to mark those and go back because most of your peers won't get there. So, which by the way, one important note that I almost forgot, all of our courses, we had a master course. We had a master course. So for general psychology, we had a master course. Now, I keep saying I rebuilt because we had 3 FTEs for psychology, and of those FTEs, we had 1 brand spanking new instructor, like just out of grad school, who'd never taught. So I rebuilt all of the psychology courses, except for social. I rebuilt all of them. So, but then from now, so what they're doing is, so what you're seeing is they're using the courses that I rebuilt. It really should be, those things should be done collaboratively as a department. And I did. I did work with our one instructor and reviewed and said, let's talk about, what I found is that some of our assignments did not have the integrity or rigor they needed. And then we had some major projects that showed up in multiple courses, which was not okay to me. And so we sat down and we went through these and said, here's a problem, let's take this out, here's how we're going to maneuver. And so now they're using this content. Does it make sense? But it should be done collaboratively, so those master courses. And that didn't take away from your individual take on some of those. It just meant that there's some non-negotiables, like if you're going to do major assignments, students should probably be doing close to the same expectation. Does it make sense? Yeah? Other questions? You had one.
You have put in some things about 1-day turnaround, 2-day turnaround.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day calendar for those turnaround times, or is there
You know, one thing that I try to get my faculty to do, they need downtime. You guys need downtime. Everybody needs downtime. I said, on weekends, make it 48 so that you have time with your family. Does that make sense? So, yeah, but other than that, and I can tell you, I didn't live up to my own expectations at times. I didn't. I would be at an event until 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night and go home, and because I did all of my grading and interacting, all of my course planning on time away from my dean position. Because I felt like it lacked integrity if I was doing it while I was doing you know what I'm saying? Does it make sense? Okay, so I did it all on my time. So I didn't always meet that 1-day turnaround. I didn't. Because I did a lot of evening activities. I went to every basketball game, every volleyball, every rodeo in town. Other questions? Y'all are a quiet group, come on.
They're tired.
Are y'all tired? Did I wear you out with this?
Audio, videos, and ADA, how did you make them meet?
That's a good question. Try and find YouTube videos that are captioned, or make sure that when you're recording your own video that you're captioning it.
What about audio feedback?
Oh, that's good. I don't know. It was probably out of compliance.
I think if it's directed to an individual student that doesn't have a disability,
It's okay? Yeah. So and I don't know what you can use to make your own personal videos, but I know that.
I'm going to be using Big Group.
Okay. So I know that I can, in TechSmith Relay, I could do captioning, and so that it would show up that way. And then you can also caption YouTube videos. I guess some of y'all know how to do that too. So not all of mine are captioned. I started working on it. We were really out of compliance as a college. Don't repeat that. Other questions, really? No other questions? Was this helpful? You sure? Okay. No questions.
What types of assignments did you give in your courses? And what was like the load for an 8-week course that you expected them to do in a given week?
All right, so that's good. Typically, I tried to do one just like reflective assignment, something that I just really wanted them to, I was very big, especially in psychology, read this and I want you to answer these questions. Not about content, but they were very, very reflective questions. And then I would do some things, so that would be a really low stakes. And then I tell you one thing that drove me crazy, by the way, when my VPI wanted me to do 8 weeks of modules, or wanted everybody to do 8 weeks of modules, she said, and every week should have a discussion board. Sorry, my students were like about to kill me. All right, they were. I was like, don't kill me. I had to, and so I was experimenting, and that didn't work. It didn't work. We want engagement, but the discussion boards weren't, I'm not saying they're bad, but that was overkill. So, there's wikis, there's blogs you can do. So then I would have usually 3 or 4 more major assignments. So, and I had them divided up, and I could show you a syllabus if you wanted to. I think y'all want to see a syllabus. Let me see if I can pull this up. So there's for Gen Psych. Gen Psych was the class that probably students as far as grade-wise did the most poorly in, if that makes sense. It's an introductory course. Lifespan, they did extremely well because it was required for nursing. Child Psych, Child Psych, they did very well. And then Human Sexuality, they did well. So does that help kind of, can y'all see that? So that's kind of, you know, nothing could fail them. Not one assignment by itself could fail them. That's really important. But that's quite a bit of work. I don't think it works over here. That's quite a bit of work. That's why rubrics they were really helpful in audio feedback. Yes, sir?
Exams, how many exams?
Really, I gave like a final exam, and sometimes it was a final project. I gave quizzes, but I was more about, particularly in the applied science of psychology, of applying it. So they did projects and things like that. Papers, a case study. Does that help? All right, good questions. What else?
How long did it take you to redesign one course?
Leslie, it depended on what kind of course. Like I probably have the only OER course in the nation for human sexuality, but there was no readily available OER books, so I built it from other OER resources. That took me probably working on it diligently 150 hours, maybe more. But that's because I had to research and find. I mean, one of the outcomes in human sexuality is about communication. And so I had to go out and look in speech books, you know, OER speech resources. But like with the other ones, once it's built, it's built. And I just changed the due dates and finessed the assignments. I do think it's critical that you change the assignments every so often, tweak them, because I know you probably know that sometimes students share. Right, so it happens. So a regular course like this, it just depended. Like if I was just putting text in, OER text into the content, that took me time to get it all formatted. But when I started building the text into PowerPoints and really just cutting down to the chase of what I wanted them to read, that took me a lot more time. So it's hard to say, Leslie, sorry. Just depends on how much you want to do with it. I spent a lot of time looking for videos that captured what we were talking about, or that extended on something that they had just the content that caused them to say, to think. And then they would have a response or a journal or some sort of interactive discussion. Good questions. Others? Is that it? Okay, then I'm done.